Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tech with Jabs. Today, again, we are joined by another special guest by the name of Kaameel. And what we hope to gain from him is we want him to introduce us to the world of gaming.
All right. Firstly, in Jabulo, thank you for having me here on your podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity, getting to talk with you and, kind of help to introduce the world of gaming to a new demographic as opposed to who I usually talk to. So, but about myself is I started getting involved in gaming, or even more specifically into the esports part of gaming, the competitive side of things, about 4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. Actually, that was my first introduction. So I started out. I did many things. I managed my brother's competitive Dota team for a while. I I've been a shoutcaster for esports and gaming for more than 3 years now. I've worked for all the big tournament organizers and stuff in South Africa with Telkom, Metal State, backed by Smartcore. I did some work at Rage and things. I host a podcast as well for a company called Esports Central, um, for about gaming and esports and stuff as well. So yeah, I do a lot of things in gaming. Maybe a few things I'm probably forgetting, but that's a brief introduction of myself. And I run a organization I recently started at beginning of December last year called Gamers of Color. So I know we're going to get into the kind of social issues and stuff that I deal with in the gaming industry, and um, basically the thinking behind this organization is to kind of unite the people of color to showcase the brilliance that we have that's not really seen or showcased by the industry as a whole, to build community and such. I'm really proud of that kind of stuff. I got a co-admin I run it with named Concept. That's his nickname, his gaming name. He doesn't like to go by his real name a lot. So that's something I'm also really happy I'm doing and proud of doing.
It sounds very interesting. So, how can we join? Where
So
do we
we
sign
have
up?
a we have a Twitter page. We haven't reached out to other social medias yet, but we have a Twitter page. It's just called Gamers of Color. So if you type that into Twitter, it will come up there. There's a link over to our Discord server, so that's where the community and stuff is run. And again, if you follow Twitter, you'll see all the events and stuff we run. We've run a chess tournament. We've run a Maga streamer night. Where we do a few things there. And yeah, whoever wants to come join, please do.
No, we'll definitely do that. Sounds very interesting. Thanks, Camille. Sure. It seems like you've been in this game, excuse the pun, for a while. I mean, she's that's a number of years. I think we've got the right person to introduce us to gaming. But now it's as interesting as gaming is, and we see how much it's grown over the years. What led you to gaming? I mean, you could have chosen to be anything or do anything, but why gaming?
Mm. So, my background in gaming is so steep. From when I was like 18 months old, my dad because he's a big techie guy as well. So, he had a PC
Right.
there for me to use. He had something called the Comfy keyboard, which is like a kid's toy keyboard thing. I used to play games on that thing. So, from when I was 18 months old, I was already gaming basically. So, I have a long history in gaming. My whole life, I played an abundance of games. And then when I was about 17 or so,
Hmm.
my brother, we used to play a game called Dota 2, which is quite a competitive game, and it's considered an esport, the
Yeah.
largest one in prize pool in the world, basically.
Yeah.
And he started playing it really seriously. He got really good at it, and he joined a team, and he was playing in a team for Telkom's league here locally in South Africa called the TGL. And then when I went there, he played a competition at Rage, which is our largest gaming expo. I went there and I got to meet all the other teams, all the top players in the country, see the broadcast talent as well, see how everything was done. And when I saw that, I immediately was like, okay, this thing is like getting big. There's some professionalism around gaming. I want to be involved in it. So from when I was about 17, that spark hit. I was like, I want to be doing something here.
Awesome, 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 awesome. I also noticed like on your YouTube channel in particular,
Mm.
for a gamer, you wouldn't expect you to touch on really, for lack of a better word, very heavy topics that in fact
Mm.
cause people to think and challenge people. And for me, I was actually struck by that. I watched one of your episodes where you were talking about racism in the gaming sort of
Mm.
fraternity, and I was just thinking to myself, you could have just stuck to the gaming and stuck to the topic. Why do you feel the need to talk about such relevant but very tough subjects to tackle?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked it. So, okay, so I did say in my introduction that I started hosting the Esport. I'm the host of the Esports Central podcast now. But when
Yeah,
that podcast began, let's say beginning of 2018, so rolling back to talk about 2 years ago, obviously 2021 now, so 3 years ago, but in actual time, it's 2 years.
yes,
Um, and during that time, when I joined there, it was a kind of the first of its kind in terms of we had all the like a lot of big names in the gaming industry on that podcast, ready to be talking about the in-depth stuff about the industry itself. How
yeah,
tournaments are run, is
yeah,
there integrity in the broadcasts,
mm,
is the format suitable for a competitive play for the players, all these like very industry specific things, like higher level stuff, right? So it was myself. Came from the Dota background where I was sort of the main man in terms of broadcasting Dota. I had two CSGO commentators and analysts with me who were very great in their field as well. We had some of the guys who host tournaments and stuff there with us. And when that journey started, so before my first 2 years in the scene, I wasn't a very vocal guy about these social issues and stuff. But
yeah,
from that podcast, we started becoming very vocal about issues, not the social issues as such from the beginning, but the practical issues that exist within the scene. So from there, we got kind of notoriety and became a bit infamous in the community because we're very vocal about things. But the
yeah,
reason I started going into the heavy topics and such is I learned when just talking about the issues in the gaming side of things from the podcast, it kind of it had an effect on my career because I was everybody's favorite caster guy, the first guy to look at. And then when you start complaining about things, and people have a different perspective of you. So from
yeah,
working every event in 1 year to like, this one has an issue with me or that one has an issue with me, and then you don't make it through. How important networking is in business,
yeah,
gaming even more
extremely,
so. So
yes,
yeah. So when you're not on people's good side, the work doesn't really come. So it's not really about how good your work is. It's more about it's how good your work is, how good your relationship is, that kind of stuff.
yes.
Um,
You manage your
so
network. Yeah,
there we go, there we go. So in a way, from a business sense, I could have burnt bridges and stuff, but I think we really pushed forward the industry in a lot of ways. So
mhm,
from that angle, I was really happy about it. And from the social side of things, is that gaming in South Africa, unfortunately, is a very elitist thing still. It's a very closed off thing because you need it is a big economic barrier to get into it.
yeah,
So you need a good, especially online gaming, right? You need good internet lines.
yeah,
If you're going to game on PC, you need a decent gaming PC, good graphics card, etc. So the
yeah,
barrier of entry is very high. And with gaming being like that,
mm,
um, your demographic is very middle to upper class, very very white. So there's
mm,
not a lot of perspectives in the gaming community. So you have a lot of bigoted views and a
yeah,
lot of racist things get said. Even
yeah.
sex. I did a recent video on sexism as
Oh,
well.
oh,
But I'm not an expert on that. I'm not gonna pretend. I just spoke about a few issues I saw, and
yeah,
with that, I think it creates yet another barrier because so many racist practices are done. There's not much perspective to help enable other people getting involved. That I think is a massive barrier to true growth of
yeah,
gaming in South Africa because again, you're catering to a very small market right now with the current status quo in gaming and esports. So I think even though it's heavy topics to talk about, I think it's the necessary topics and the
mm.
discussions that we need to be having to push the scene forward in a way.
No, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I guess what comes to mind to me is then, Camille, when you think about it, we have these barriers in gaming, and
Mm,
then obviously human nature needs to be incentivized in some form,
mm.
and that's the thing with capitalism, whether you agree with it or not. So I guess what I
Yeah,
wanted to find out is, so we have these deep conversations, these necessary conversations, which is a really
right.
great thing. But then it becomes a matter of, once we do have these conversations and a consensus has been reached, and we agree that no, we need to meet guys from basically disadvantaged backgrounds halfway. Because I mean,
Mm,
the challenges of having a strong internet connection line, and et cetera,
yes.
regarding to gaming. You'll know more than I do all the things that you need to set up the whole gaming station, etc. But now my question then to you becomes, we meet the guys halfway, to what end? Because I guess it alludes to the fact that, what opportunities would we be creating? Then if we get all the lines and we set up a workshop and we get the guys gaming, what is it for? Who is it going to benefit? So just explain to me, maybe I'm missing something, in the sense that by us building that necessary gaming community,
Right.
that open up opportunities for those guys. Because I guess sometimes what challenges people is ignorance. So you might have other people that actually will be able to plow and say, listen, let's give these guys a chance, and let's help these communities start gaming. But then with ignorance, you'll be like, why? Because there's just games, silly games. So explain to us, Kaameel,
Right.
what opening those doors for the disadvantaged will do for them.
Love your questions, Injabulo. I'm really enjoying it so far. So, from a certain perspective, I understand why the current status quo is where it is, and why the big companies, your telecoms, your metal states, your ACGLs are investing. Well, them a bit different because they run their business a bit different. And
Yeah.
invest the way they do right now is because the way they see. I mean, these guys are they basically the guys who run the scene now are the first generation of like PC gamers and LAN gamers and stuff here. So
Yes.
guys like Nate, Nathaniel he works at a company called Nodwin now. Guys like Barry, who's at Metal State, they used to be, Battlefield gamers and involved in the early renditions of Counter-Strike and such. So they're coming from that mentality of like PC gaming and stuff. And it didn't come from affluent backgrounds or anything like that. Times were different then. You didn't have these fancy stages and big esports expos and rages and stuff. So they're just doing what they know in the sense. And because again, your more affluent communities, your middle class to upper class people, they have the purchasing power. So your Asus's and your Intels and such want to advertise to them because they're the guys who can
I
afford to go
see.
buy it, right?
Yes, yes.
But the other side of it is like you're asking me, what's the potential if we do start meeting
Yes.
our lower demographics
Hmm.
or economic background? Sorry, demographics
Yes,
not the
yes,
right word
yes.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the benefits there? And I think I tell a story here. So there's a guy
Please
named
do.
Thabo Maloy.
Yes.
He played in a FIFA competition hosted by VS Gaming at Monte Casino in 2018. It was R1.5 million on the line, so 1.5 million total at this FIFA tournament.
Yes.
And he never owned a PlayStation, let
Yes.
alone a game of FIFA or anything. But he
Yeah.
used to go to his friends, he used to play FIFA. He had a knack for the game.
Yeah.
I would like to say this guy was born to play FIFA in a way. And he
Yes.
got to this tournament. And the FIFA guys in South Africa is one of the most toughest esports, competitors. We have endless amount of good players, both on PlayStation and Xbox One.
Yeah.
So he got in there and he started playing. And in the early rounds, people were like, "Who's this kid?" He started beating players, beating players, beating players. And this is a long day of FIFA. I mean, Oak started on 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning,
Yeah.
and the tournament ended at 2 in the morning on
Yes.
Monday the next day. It was
Sure.
that's how much FIFA
Sure.
Oaks played. And this guy, unbeaten through a whole weekend, beating so many top players. By the time he got to the finals, he was playing a very experienced player who was who won same VS Gaming tournament the year before. He
Yeah.
walked home with 500,000 rand, and he
Yeah.
gets to the finals and he knocks this guy 4-0 by 40 minutes into the game. The guy didn't know what to do in the finals. He dominated. So
And
after that, this young guy Tabo, he's like kind of a esports Colossi story almost in a way. He got
yeah.
signed by an org named Goliath Gaming. Red Bull is now investing in the guy and such. I think there's so many. It's a statistics thing for me that there's
Yeah.
so many of these hidden talents around South Africa that we don't know about. That
Yeah.
there's a joke about it that the best Counter-Strike player is probably somewhere off in the field playing rugby or football or cricket or something else, just because he doesn't know, he doesn't have
Yeah.
access to esports. So I think the scene itself gets pushed forward by the best level of competition,
Yes.
um, by introducing these new demographics in. And I think it's not about just today, right? Because today it's going to be very hard for Asus to see how they're going to sell a motherboard to a young kid from Soweto or Roshni or Lens or something like that.
Yeah.
But in 20 years time or 25 years or 20 years time, when this guy is having his own children and he's in a different economic situation, he's
Yeah.
going to be very keen to gaming.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a whole new generation then that the market in South Africa could be something we can't even imagine today. It could be that big going forward in the future. So I think there needs to be a thinking of not just the now, but really investing in the future of South African gaming and
Yes,
esports.
yes. Yeah, definitely agree with you, Kaameel. And what you're saying resonates with me because I was just looking, watching a couple of videos as well on YouTube, and I was looking at the different gamers out there, and I was just thinking of this long-term mindset in the sense that
Mm,
apparently the views for these tournaments is insane. Like,
Mm.
I think it even beats the Super Bowl or something along those lines. Like it's millions and
Right.
millions and millions of people that are involved in these tournaments. You just think of advertising that could go on these platforms, etc., etc. So I suppose it does help with this one to have a long-term sort of view when it comes to gaming as a whole, the gaming culture as a whole. In terms of what the opportunities are. So I know that the first one is tournaments. So if you play hard, you pick some sort of game that is regarded as a competitive game. I don't know. I'm assuming if my terminology is okay, and then you stick to that
Right.
game and you play hard, you play extremely
Mm.
hard, and then with the goal to get into some tournament. How often do these tournaments take place, and where do they take place?
So, okay, there's a number of different people who host tournaments in South Africa. The one company is called VS Gaming, backed by Telkom.
Yeah,
They run a abundance of different games on their website and through their platform, the DGL.
yeah.
You have Metal State. They're always doing things.
Mm,
Tournaments here, games like PUBG Mobile, Call of Duty,
mm,
Counter Strike, etc. They do. I'm currently working for a company called Nodwin Gaming International. They're an international company that recently invested here in South Africa. They're
yeah.
doing FIFA, Counter Strike, Tekken, a
Mm.
few games, and hopefully some more titles going forward. Go
So I
for it.
wanted to ask you, Camille. So what do you do for the company since it's an international gaming company?
So for that company, I'm currently a commentator. I do commentary for FIFA. So I'm like Andy Gray and Martin Tyler, but for FIFA instead of real football. That's what I do for them. I have a great time doing so.
So that's a
What
potential
I do for
opportunity
them.
for someone to get into.
Yeah, sure. So I can break down again like the multiple avenues. So you can let me tell you the one thing I really love about gaming and esports. I feel like the thing you need to be able to succeed in gaming and esports is one thing, and that's
Yeah,
the Nike philosophy. You just got to do it because the industry is so new
yeah,
and it's so young, right? We may be 20 years old at maximum for the current shape of esports, not even more like 10 years.
yeah.
And with the industry being at this age, there's so much room for opportunity and innovation. So in a way, there's not that many opportunities because again, there isn't these massive infrastructures around it. But
Yeah.
because it's young, it's
Mm,
new, you have an opportunity to be an entrepreneur yourself, to content create yourself. I mean, we have these platforms like YouTube, like Twitch, your social medias, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, and even now TikTok.
mm,
So you can do many things. So what I do, I'm a content creator. So I do YouTube videos, I do podcasts,
yeah.
I do commentary for games. That's how I started out, and it's something I still do, and hopefully will be doing for a long time because I enjoy it. There's people who work in the background in the production scene. There's so many gaming outlets that you can write for. Whether it's gaming, whether it's just like geek lifestyle, like anime and stuff, whether it's the hardcore esports. There's a lot of scope in terms of opportunity in the gaming world, in my opinion.
It's the whole idea of it's up to you, pretty much, that with
Yeah.
the platforms that are out there. Because you are right when you mention things like YouTube. I feel like many people can actually start their channels easily, especially with what they have, their phones, etc. Because who knows? You never know how quickly you might your interest could also be the interest of other people as well. So that is quite true. And then so okay, so you do the podcast, you do the channel. You're heavily involved in the gaming industry. But then also, then what do you think about the guys that actually focus on the game testing? What's the scope like? Let's start with South Africa and then let's look abroad.
I think I'm not so clued up on the development side of gaming,
Yeah,
but just from general. So again, I'm a complete amateur on that side because I'm not a very
mm,
heavily technical person like that, so I wouldn't know myself. But
yeah,
I think just in terms of development and programming and such, I would, if I had a kid today, I would tell him to go into that world because I feel like you would know more than me how much opportunity there is there if you have these technical skills, know how to program, understand the way all these your technologies are working today and how to program with it and stuff. So
yeah,
I don't know specifically from the game development side. I know actually South Africa has a lot of games that being developed here, like small indie games.
yeah.
I know a few of the guys, but the technical aspect and how much opportunity there is there,
Mm.
I don't actually know, unfortunately, because again, I'm not a technical person in that sense.
No, 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 no. That's actually cool because even the whole purpose of me just chatting to you is to get that whole rounded view. Because we basically
Mm,
what we're looking for is to get an intro. We want to get our foot in the door.
right,
I heard you talk a lot and mention a lot of esports. So what is esports?
right. All right, that's a great question. So again, like you said, gaming at the moment has had such a big rise in the world, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of the most consumed media forms ever. Like
Yeah.
in the present day, it's one of the big ones. I mean, there was a quote by Netflix the other day that's like, hey, they don't see HBO and all these guys as their rivals. Epic Games, the guys who make Fortnite, those are our rivals because they're stealing our viewers because kids are going to play games. So gaming in the world has had a very big uprising in the last couple of years, and esports is a subset in gaming. It's
Mm.
basically, I mean, we can call, to use a sports analogy, playing outside football or with your friends.
Yeah.
That's playing sports, but the esports part of it would be like, your Barclays Premier Leagues and UEFA Champions Leagues and things. It's the competitive side. It's the
Yeah.
highly professional side. You guys are
Mm.
training every day. Guys are getting salaries. Guys are competing for prize money. There's coaches, all that kind of stuff involved. So that's the esports side of it. So I'm more involved in the esports side of it. But again, you can't be involved in esports if you're not involved in gaming first. I think the worlds are kind of linked in that sense.
Wow. So, geez, I was actually amazed. I saw one of the interviews. I was amazed that they're actually coaches. And I'm not sure what the guy's name was that you were talking to, but he was heavy. Like he was like, yeah, no, I think it was 2018 or something. You asked him and he said no, they try to get the best coaches. And I was actually surprised. I was like, geez, yo, you live and learn, eh? Because I didn't know that it gets in depth like that, where even coaches are hired to help the guys become
Right.
better.
And it's so crazy within the different esports that exist. So, like a game like Dota 2, there are coaches involved in the scene, but they're kind of like the side guys. They just there to support the main team. Help with like the notes and things about match preparation and stuff. They're more like an assistant than compared to your Jose Mourinho's, who are
Yes, who are
the
literally there.
dictators telling
Yeah,
you even how to tie your shoelaces. But then
yeah,
another game, League of Legends,
yeah,
which is I think the largest esport in terms of spectators and stuff in the world. You made that thing comment about the Super Bowl earlier. This
yeah,
is the game that has probably reached more viewership than the Super Bowl,
yeah,
according to certain stats.
yeah.
And there, your coaches have a lot of power. I mean, if you let's say they play best of 5 maps, so if your team loses the first map, when you
Mm,
go into the second map, if your coach wasn't impressed, he will bench you. You can be
mm,
playing $1 million match right now. He thinks you're not doing the right thing. He puts the new guy in. He's like, okay, you're gonna play this. You're gonna do this. So it's
yo,
like, so in the different games, there's a different level of impact that coaches have. So it's
yeah,
very interesting. Like I say, the world is very new. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. It's crazy out here. It's honestly just nuts.
definitely crazy. What? So, are we then saying that esports could take over your conventional sports? I mean, because I look at the views are insane, even though I'm not sure if they get the same money behind them, backing them up in terms of the companies
Right.
that back them up. But would it be a huge reach to say that esports is going to take over in the coming years?
So I have a very unique perspective about this because
Yeah.
I have a strong sporting background as well. I mean, LeBron James is my hero straight up. So I I feel like I sit more in the middle because I hear what the sporting guys have to say about esports, and I hear what the esports guys have to say about real, quote unquote, real sports. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, both the two parties don't know what they're talking about when they talk about each other. So I think there's a big disconnect in that side of the world. But I think the esports guys like to pretend that they're showing these graphs about upward trends and stuff, but maybe I'm a bit more old school in that I don't think it will be taking over in the sense of traditional sports. And I think
Yeah.
the way esports has been modeled so far, there's a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity, but a lot is sort of taken from your traditional sports. But I
Mm.
think the future is going to look very different to what we know today, because if we look over a game like Fortnite,
Yeah.
they don't really care about the professionalism and the esports side of it. Although they have competitions and competitive tournaments and prize money, it's
Yeah.
more about showmanship and fun and engagement. So in attracting the casual community, they do that job in terms of marketing better than any other company I can think of off the top of my head. Because I mean, if you look at the companies they've collaborated with in Fortnite, they've collaborated with Marvel, they've
Mm.
collaborated with DC, they've collaborated with Star Wars, they collaborated with now with Terminator, they've collaborated with Sony with
Sure.
God of War. They're bringing in all forms of the culture we know and love every day into
Yeah.
the game. I mean, there was a Travis Scott concert
Yeah.
inside of Fortnite. So
Yeah.
this might not be related to esports as a hardcore thing, but I think
This game
maybe
is
that
for the
concert probably gets
community.
more viewers
Yeah.
than Wimbledon final.
Yes.
They
Yes.
being
Yes.
super creative. So in terms of marketing and using games to market going forward, I
Mm.
think that the potential in that market is massive.
Yeah,
Honestly, just crazy. I think that Netflix quote about Epic being one of the competitors, I don't think they're worried about esports specifically, but just how much gaming is going to take up in a part of our lives, I think is is a scary thing actually thinking about going into the future, because it could be a very
sure.
large part.
So with regards to it replacing sport, you're not really want to say that it's going to replace sport, but you can see the growth, the at least the growth part, that no, it will continue on a positive trajectory. But then I guess then I have to wonder then if if that's the case. A couple of weeks back, I was talking to a lady by the name of Palisa. So she went to South Korea to teach English, right?
Mm,
And and what I noticed is that I started asking her about the tech scene and the culture there. And obviously, she spoke of good Wi-Fi connection, data is not a problem. Little small things like that that give people
right,
advantages over another. Like it's very hard to compete with different nations, whichever way you look at it. If you're gonna fail
right.
at the basics, such as making sure that everyone is properly connected at cheap rates. So I guess for me, and she mentioned many other things as well. Oh yes, another thing that she mentioned, in fact, Camille, is the fact that the kids that side, I think at grade 3, some of the children she teaches are actually building drones at, I think, the age of grade 5 or something in that level. So you can imagine, how do we compete with such guys? So which leads me to my next
Mm,
question, which is, how can we then start prepping the younger generation or the up and coming guys? How can we support them basically for the future?
all right. So it's funny you bring up South Korea, because there's a joke in the
Yeah.
terms of the esports world is that any games that the Koreans play, they are the best in. It's just like it's just how things go. League of Legends, the
Yeah.
biggest esports in the world,
Yes.
they're the best at it. They've been winning everything for so long. Even when Chinese teams are winning tournaments, it's
Yes.
because there's Koreans playing in that team. So
Yeah.
they just have such a strong culture in gaming. Even their whole story about how they started becoming such a powerhouse in gaming is that there was a point where I think the country was coming out of a recession or something like that. And I think PC bangs or a gaming cafe started opening up.
Mm.
And Blizzard, there was a game called StarCraft, and they managed to get keys. They were giving out keys to PC banks and stuff there. So StarCraft was loaded on every single PC at all these cafes.
Mm.
So after school and stuff, it was very cheap to go play. That's what kids were going to do. They went to go play the StarCraft. So
Yeah.
at some point, like 40% of the country of South Korea were all just playing these games. And,
Yeah.
in these Asian countries, work ethic, drive, working those extra hours is built into the culture. So when they start getting involved in something, they're 5 steps ahead of you already, because they've taken 12 steps. Like they've been working, they've been moving, so they're already ahead. But in South Africa, I think the big thing we need to do, I think South Africa is an amazing country with a lot of potential in so many things. And I think, again, the big thing for me, the way our scene takes a big leap forward into making a mark on the international scene again, is opening up to the rest of the country. I think we need to do what the Koreans did,
Yeah.
make gaming accessible to everybody. Kids coming out of school, they must be able to go pay 10 rand to go walk into a cafe and play some games.
Yeah.
That'd be the ultimate dream if I could think of. So I think, again,
Yeah.
from the business side, when we think of investing, again, sure, you can host a tournament now for
Mm.
those 100 kids who are going to come play, who have very rich parents and stuff. But if you start opening up to the larger audience, starting to tap into schools and such, I think that's
Yeah.
where the key is for true growth in
Mm.
terms of gaming in South Africa.
Yeah, and that's making us more competitive. Oh, that's actually an
Yeah.
interesting fact with the South Koreans, because yeah, because when she told me about that, I was thinking to myself, like I was thinking competitively in how you think of different nations, and you think of your Americas, etc., and you think to yourself, these nations, they always pride themselves in leading the world,
Mm,
and there's a reason why they pride themselves in that. And that's in certain instances, not always, but sometimes there are things that they're getting right that some of the
yeah.
so-called the developing world, or the third world
Mm,
nations, as some people like to say, are not getting right. And for me, it's the investment at a young age. I've noticed the countries that are doing well is they really put a lot of investment on what they want to drive for the future. There's no point
right.
you investing a lot in your older generation, like extreme amounts in your older generation. Not that we forget them, but you're investing the most of the money in the older generation when there's people that are young that you need to be actually driving forward and encouraging for them and motivating them to do these, experience these new technologies. And I don't see why we can't lead as far as even in the world of gaming. There is no reason, in my view, as long as we obviously breed a culture, like you're saying, where we're giving the guys options and actually cheaper ways to actually start playing these games. So, and then Kaameel, tell me something. I've noticed wherever you look throughout the world, the gaming culture is a bit of a there are cliques, in the sense that
Mm.
there are a lot of networks. So how does that work in the gaming culture? How do those form? Is it a matter of guys just enjoying to play, guys enjoying playing the same games, or how do those networks form, and how does one actually enter into those networks to learn more about gaming?
Yeah, I think that point of clarification you're making here is so important in
Mm,
Jabulo, because this is what a lot of the marketing guys from the esports side, they don't tell the outside world when they're marketing and they're showing these figures about how many people watch esports and this and that, is that they use the term esports like a blanket term, but
yeah.
it's esport, like individual games. So your different games, your Dotas, your Counter Strikes, your League of Legends, your FIFAs,
Mm,
your Fortnites, etc. Those audiences do not cross. The
yeah.
business guys will say they do, but they really don't, because the kind of, like, the game I come from, Dota 2, it's such a joke and such a meme that I said I stopped being a gamer when I started playing that game, because that's all I played.
Yeah.
So for a lot of these games, it works like that. There's not a lot of overlap. So they form communities around the game,
Yeah.
that's how these guys function. So even in South Africa, even though all our four esports scenes are so small and still in their infant phases,
Mm.
nobody really knows each other outside of from
Yeah.
the different games. The Fortnite guys don't know the Counter Strike guys, and the Counter Strike guys don't know the Dota guys. It's
Mm.
like they all completely separated in our own little bubbles, which is,
Mm.
it's very sad, and very weird in a way, but it's also understandable, because I mean, these guys, these gamers, they're just there doing what they enjoy at the end of the day. Just because you enjoy one game doesn't mean you're gonna enjoy another game. But it definitely is a thing, and it's something the business guys struggle with a lot, because they would love to be able to cross their markets, get more people in total in tournaments playing, more people watching in total. But unfortunately, it's a very hard thing to do in gaming.
Mm. So how do you start then? What do you do? Do you pick a game and then just literally be like, this is my game and I'm gonna master it, and then try find a community around that game? Yeah, and what if you find that the game you enjoy actually won't be able to get you to where you need to go, basically?
Right, right. So I think, okay, I know we've been hyping up a lot of things, but I think it does need to be said. Said here. It's a very important thing, is that the current shape of where gaming is today in South Africa, it needs to still be viewed as a hobby, still not as a career just yet. Because
Mhm.
although there's a lot of opportunities, there's a certain level of scope and ceiling to the opportunity, I
Yeah.
think. Because usually,
And
if
for
you
the
want to be a
benefit.
professional, like commentator or shoutcaster, for example,
Yeah.
or be a professional gamer or something, it
Mm.
does require you to go overseas, get a lucky opportunity and such. And there's only so many people with the skill, talent, and opportunity all colliding together to get that chance to do that. So don't want to dissuade people to pursue their dreams, but I also don't want to sell people some false hope here, because
Yes,
right
yes,
now
nothing.
the scene
Mm.
is an amateur scene. People need to realize it's still a hobby for the moment. So don't put all your eggs in that basket. So
Mm.
with that being said, that it's still in its infant phase, still a hobby, still an amateur thing, is do what you love, do what you enjoy, right? I started my commentary in Dota 2. I have the technical skills now to do commentary for any other game. Maybe it's because I'm lazy, that's why I don't. But I don't enjoy every other game, so I can try, I can do it, but it's not the same. It's not the same Kaameel who's casting Dota that's going to be casting. What's the game I really don't like? Counter Strike, for example.
Yeah.
Because it's different things. So I would say do what you love, do what you enjoy, build
Mm.
around that as much as possible, because there are those who do kind of like chase the hype, jump to the games that are most popular and stuff. But I mean, if you're gonna chase from 10 viewers to 20 viewers, or 5 viewers to 15 viewers, it does. Who are you trying to impress with these things? Just do what you love. I think that's the important thing.
So literally just find, like I said, find that game that you love and just pursue it. But don't for any reason think that you can make a living off it right now. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and then but now, okay, I guess then I also do wonder. So what does it mean if you are doing multiple? jobs right now within the gaming sphere.
Right.
I'll call them jobs. Of is it worth it? Basically, is it worth people's while to get into this, or should they be taking small baby steps and have a long-term view?
That's a really good question. So from my side, I think from my commentary gigs and stuff, even though I started out doing things and stuff for free for a lot of these companies just to get my name out of there, doing experience, get that experience, I do get paid.
Mm,
The company I mentioned earlier, Nodwin, they pay me to be a FIFA caster. I've been
yeah.
paid for, I do international work for Dota still. I cast Russian games and European games for
Mm,
international companies.
mm,
My podcast and stuff are monetized. I have a publication who buys the content from me, and I work very closely with together because we have a good relationship in terms of creating that kind of content together. So there is scope to monetize there, but
mm.
the thing is the way where the scene is at right now. If
Yes.
you're in it for the money,
You
there's so many better industries to get into. Like literally, there's not a lot of money in esports, and I think another part of it, it's a thing I'm also realizing now as I'm progressing in my career here. I'm
Yes.
also a very privileged person to have had a, my dad could have bought me a laptop when I was young. I have good internet at home
Yes.
and such. So I was privileged to be able to get into the position I am today, to be able to start getting involved in esports. But a lot of the things in esports, even globally,
Mm,
is run through a form of generational wealth. You have large backing behind you, large investment for you to have the biggest teams or have this big company and stuff now, because esports is like any other industry, right? In Jabulo, money is king. So whoever has the money is going to be the biggest fish and biggest dog in the park in the sense. So
yeah.
even globally, your Chinese teams, I mean, the market is so big there, but a lot of the teams are owned by like billionaires' kids, for example, and things.
Yeah.
So that is the usual barriers in life still exist in gaming, even though it's all smiles and clicks and fun and entertainment. But industry side, the business side is still a business at the end of the day.
So yeah, no, no, I get that, and you know what? Thank you, Camille, for actually being real with us, because you know
100%.
that's what we always aim to get out of people from these episodes. I mean, you know, because most people just start telling you about show you the graph, the upward facing graph, and
Right.
how everything is going up, but not actually showing you the realities, which is the fact that you might not actually survive of this. So in as much
Mm,
as you may love it, but that means you can pursue it, but make sure that you've got something else also backing you up at the same time. And I think
yeah.
that's key. And I think many people actually make that mistake for many industries where it's all green, the grass seems green everywhere, but the reality is it's not like that. It's not necessarily green all the time. So on that, any words for someone that says, yeah, I hear you, Camille, I hear you, yeah, I hear you, but all I know is, especially because I know that this generation is a very strong generation. So they were like, yeah, what's Camille talking about? I'm not listening to that guy. I'm gonna do my own thing in gaming. So what pieces of advice do you have for some of the guys that are like, yeah, I hear you, but
So those guys,
yeah,
those guys are the perfect people for me to talk to, because I was one of those guys,
yeah,
My younger days, I also knew better than everybody. So
yeah,
I think the best thing for those guys, you don't need to tell those people anything, because after you progress a bit in life, you realize there's only one thing that really teaches you stuff, and that's experience. So go through it. That's why I say the only thing, like your t-shirt has a Nike logo. The only advice I have for gaming, or to be involved in gaming or esports, or to be someone here, is to just freaking do it, man. That's all it requires. Be
yeah.
ambitious, believe in yourself, back yourself, and do it better than anybody else, because the opportunity is there for you.
So true. And that's how I feel about YouTube as well, Camille. I feel like
Yeah.
everyone should, if you've got a camera and so I don't care, even if you have to hotspot to upload, even if you have to wait 3 hours, but start something, because the sooner you start, I don't know about you in terms of gaming, in terms of picking up, but what I've noticed on the YouTube side is YouTube is hard. So it really, if you want to learn about how to build something from scratch, and learn the ups and downs of that. And I would assume gaming it might be similar, but though I might not be
Right.
sure. But it's the whole idea of building something, and you're like, no, you've got a long-term
Mm,
view that is gonna grow gradually as long as you're seeing growth. And if it's not growing, you ask yourself, why isn't it growing? Basically,
mm,
alluding also to the fact that if someone wants to get into gaming, in my personal opinion, they'll have to approach it like that and tell themselves, no, we're going to grow it. So we're going to grow it one step at a time.
right.
And before you know it, because things happen, sometimes you just take off, you never really know what you're sitting on, and I think people also need to be aware of that, because you might see another way. What do you think, Camille, about gamification, basically, for they would like to get into this, where they're actually creating games to help educate people? I suppose you can also use it even in schools. The whole idea of building games so that people, to teach kids, for instance, or corporates to for whatever activities to educate their staff. What do you think about that?
So this I actually do have a good answer on, because
Yeah.
I'm kind of involved in it in the sense that
Mm.
because again I've been so intertwined in the industry in gaming. I grew up gaming. I'd be working now in it and such.
Yeah.
I read a lot of these articles and studies about like sort of the benefits of gaming and stuff, the cognitive effects that gaming and stuff has,
Mm.
the good and the bad. And a lot of I'm actually doing a gig at the moment for a company called Corporate Esports Association, and what they are is they rounded up together the Google, your Microsoft, your Amazon, all these big corporates.
Yeah.
They got all of the people who want to be involved in there to start playing games. So they're running Dota 2 leagues, they're running Counter-Strike leagues, they're running all these leagues for these big corporates as a
Yeah.
form of team building, as a form of camaraderie and stuff amongst your colleagues and your co-workers and things. So I think gaming already from the corporate sense, we're seeing them use gaming like that. I don't think, for me at least, I don't think they need to specifically build games and stuff like do educational games and stuff for school kids and stuff. No, let them go play a game of Counter Strike or FIFA or Dota 2 or Fortnite. They're going to be learning stuff there all the time, getting better reaction skills, communicating with their teammates.
Mm.
Just having an overall vision and objective understanding of the game to be able to get better and improve.
Mm.
There's just so much benefits that come from something like gaming that I'm all about this gamification, man. Let's make gaming a bigger part of our daily lives.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense. But how has the pandemic affected gaming, though?
So I think this is a great question as well. Yo, you did your research. You are this guy. He's a real podcaster. This guy, he's
Wow.
the man.
Coming from
So
you,
the
Camille.
pandemic, the pandemic has been honestly, and it's a bad thing to say because obviously for the holistically for the whole world it's been a terrible thing, but the gaming industry, because everything runs online, it's been like a blessing in disguise for us. So when all these sports got hit and had to figure out how to run bubbles and do all these things to keep on going,
Yeah.
gaming was just chugging along. There was everything was just running online. There was so many people who started up taking up Twitch streaming and stuff. It's kind of blown up in that sense. I think online chess is also a good example of this, that
Ooh, that
the
sounds
gaming
fun.
world and the chess world,
Sounds fun.
the
Yes.
gaming world and the chess world kind of got together. Twitch, the main distributor of gaming content,
Mm.
basically contacted all the chess guys, they contacted all the streamer guys, and they made collaborations and stuff happened there. So now online chess is like a big thing in the esports world also. I think
Have you played online
I
chess
do
before?
play. I'm
Sounds like
really
it would. Sounds
bad.
like it. Oh, we should play sometime. Sounds like it would be fun. Yeah.
You gotta go easy on me though if we play. I watched Queen's Gambit, so I thought I was legit, but that game is
No, I
difficult.
can imagine. Yeah,
But
no, it's been a while since I've played as well. Yeah.
uh, but in short, man, the pandemic was an opportunity for gaming, and I think a lot of
Mm.
the industry as a whole capitalized on it really well. I think they pushed a lot of things forward in that time.
So, any new companies having come out of? Because you know how we often hear the sad stories of companies closing. So, any new companies basically having been created just from this period that you know of?
I'm sure there are new companies that have started, but I can't think of any at the top of my head. Unfortunately, right now, I just shooting a blank. But I do know the companies already involved, even though a lot of especially on the esports side, a lot of the way the companies run was through LANs and physical play on the ground, getting your players and stuff together. So it was a bit of a hard thing for them, but they adjusted really well to make sure the show could still go on from an online perspective and things. So I think your general industry players, your ESLs, I think Riot, who run League of Legends, they did like a bubble, kind of how the NBA did, but they did it for their League of Legends tournament that ran swimmingly. I think there was a lot of innovation and adaptation that happened in the gaming scene that was really, really well done in the time of the pandemic to keep these companies who were already involved
Yes.
where they were at, or to grow even larger in that time.
Oh, great, great, great. I've also noticed, Camille, there's a couple of do you call them studios or arcades? I'm not sure where you've got these sort of hubs, these gaming hubs all over. There's a few in Joburg as well. So as someone that wants to start, would you recommend going there? I know they charge like a couple of $100 as well. I'm not sure though
Mm.
whether there's coaching or whether you just find a place and start driving if there's a driving game or whatever. How do those work? Because I've noticed there's quite a few of them.
There's a few that were out even way back in the days before that was like a normal thing in SA. They kind of closed down and stuff at the end, which is kind of sad. But I
Yeah.
think there's a South African team called the Kasi Esports. They
Mm.
ran a FIFA tournament late last year that um basically what they did was they ran 5 different FIFA tournaments at these different gaming cafes, right? So they
Yeah.
went there, they hosted physical tournaments, they got players in and stuff to showcase these gaming places that exist,
Yes.
and to the world and to find talent that we haven't seen in the online world, but they're physically. So that, like you say, there is these opportunities there. There's a company called the Art Gaming that used to have a physical store. I'm not sure what they did with it now during the pandemic.
Yeah.
They used to have a physical store. They used to let people come play for free there. That is the craziest thing. I know the guy Dean who runs it says he used to provide support and stuff to players. He got his own stream, Twitch. They have their own Twitch channel they stream on and stuff. They have a couple of streamers there. In Cape Town is the very high gaming cafe called ATK Arena in
Yeah.
Claremont. So
Mhm.
there is a couple of these places where you can physically go and play. I think that same company I mentioned, the Kasi Esports, that team, they
Yeah.
had their own gaming house and stuff as well. So it's to house their players, to let them train and stuff together and such. So there's a lot of that actually in the at the moment. But again, during the pandemic, I couldn't go and physically investigate all these places myself. So that's a pretty sad thing. But
Mm.
hopefully, as the country starts opening up again, and hopefully as we start healing from the virus, we can interact more with these physical places on the ground.
Awesome, awesome. And then the one last question, which is basically similar to something I'd asked you before. So to get started, best way.
The best way. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna give like a 3-step plan here.
Yeah.
Firstly, you do what you enjoy. Get involved in the games you enjoy,
Super
even if it's
Mario.
not even gaming. If it's just
But is Super
sorry,
Mario still
Super
relevant?
Mario. Yo,
Old
if you
school.
find scope for Super, that would be. Listen, if you Super Mario still your thing, I don't know how much scope there is for you, but try. That's all I'll say. Try. Then
Excuse me.
once you start getting involved in the game, I think try interact with the communities from the game itself,
Yeah.
and then see how you go from there. So you interact with the people involved, and then to further that, after you do that, start do what. Or the only way I know, maybe there's other and better ways, but start interacting with the industry as a whole. See who the KCs are who run the podcast. See who the writers are so they can cover you in articles. See who the teams are so you can start interacting with them and linking up with them and the key players in the industry. I think do what treat it as a passion and as a hobby you truly love. But if you want to sort of progress it and go further and make
Yeah.
it a career, in a sense, even though I advise against it because it's still a new industry, start
Yeah.
treating it like a business. Then use your networking,
Mm.
put in the hours,
Yeah.
stay professional in the content you do and such, because that's what it requires. Same like any other industry.
Awesome, awesome. This was extremely informative, and really just thank you for your honesty, Camille. You didn't just tell us about
Right.
graphs always going up and without actually and I think that helps, especially in this day and age, because you can't be feeding people lies and, and then
Right.
they go into the field and then they're like, no, Camille has no integrity. I mean, you could have told us the truth, that no, that it is still a young industry, and even in
Right.
as much as it's growing, we must be cognizant of the fact that the way I see it with industries that are still growing, Camille, is you have to do something extraordinary in order for you
100%.
something crazy that'll get people talking in order for you to obviously make your mark.
Right.
Otherwise,
There's just one thing I'd
yeah,
like to add. Sorry
yeah,
to cut you off there, but to
do,
tie this whole thing back up together.
do.
The reason I am so candid and so honest, and that's the reason, like, you asked me why I talk about these hard discussions about like the racism and such, is because, I think there's a great quote by a philosopher. I can't remember his name right now, but he says people view him as it's about by an existential philosopher as well. So you were saying people view him as a pessimist, and they say he's like defeated in life, but he says no. The true pessimists are those who smile and pretend everything's okay, to be optimistic in a world that has these issues. The reason he's being negative and talking about all these difficult things is because he believes you can solve them. If you work, you can actually solve them. So I wouldn't talk about these things if I didn't think there were solutions for them. So even though people view me as hot-headed, talk about the tough things, I think I'm the most optimistic guy in the industry because I'm here willing to put into work to make those issues go better. Yeah, I think that's a very accurate reflection of me. This point I'm making.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Camille. So you're basically you're teaching us, you're training us, and basically helping us understand that no, there is a way around these issues, these social issues that people, especially within the issues of sexism as well as you do,
Right.
and yeah, man, and racism as well in the gaming fraternity. Oh, just one question as well, though, as a side note, while we're talking of racism, it actually, those are things that struck me as odd when you mention racism in the gaming fraternity, because you think to yourself, you think you're all a community just enjoying one
Right.
game. So to think that there could be some people that actually don't have that view is really quite sad when you think about it. But I do also understand that Rome wasn't built in a day. So certain
Yeah.
people, when they grow up a certain way, they do need to be retaught in that sense, because I don't believe anyone is born a racist. So yeah, so I
Right.
just hope that Camille, you'll continue making it uncomfortable in certain circles with your questions, but no,
100%.
knowing that the greater goal, for the greater good, I mean, it's all for the greater good. So yeah, thank you very much, Camille, for your time, and I really do hope that there'll be many more interviews such as this one, and look forward actually to what you'll be doing in the gaming scene. I really do actually believe that your experience in the gaming world is quite vast. Many people just talk about gaming because they've touched this and this and this, but you've actually been walking this journey for quite a number of years. That's why I think we can take your words to be of value to us, and for as guidance, in fact, for what we need to do to start getting interest or getting started in this industry. And yeah, and I mean, if tell us also about your podcast as well. Where do we find Camille as well? Because I've listened to a couple of your podcasts as well, where you also speak about games and the industry.
All right, so go check out a website called esportscentral.co.za. That's the hub of all the esports news that happens in South Africa, and over there they host my podcast, the Esports Central podcast, where I interview notable figures and important key players in South African gaming industry, and of course international figures as well.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you yet again, Camille. Any last words?
All I want to just say is thank you to you, man. I really enjoyed this podcast. It was great chatting to you. Hopefully, we do many more going forward in the future. And much success to you and your platform, dude. I hope to see it grow, man. I hope to see
Thank
it
you
grow.
very, very much. Thank you very much, Camille. Goodbye, everyone, and I hope you do like, comment, and subscribe. Cheers, everyone.